The British Home Office is starting a review of investor visas issued to prominent allies of the Kremlin. One America's Kristian Rouz has our report.
British authorities are taking further steps to crack down on the influx of capital from corrupt Russian officials and oligarchs allied with the Kremlin. In her parliament speech this week, Home Secretary Rouz said her office will look at hundreds of so-called golden visas issued between 2008 and 2015. The Home Secretary's remarks come in response to Prime Minister Theresa May's call to address the matter.
We will freeze Russian state assets wherever we have the evidence that they may be used to threaten the life or property of UK nationals or residents. And led by the National Crime Agency, we will continue to bring all the capabilities of UK law enforcement to bear against serious criminals and corrupt elites. There is no place for these people or their money in our country.
The move comes amid the most recent development in the UK's reaction to the poisoning of Russian exile Sergei Skripal and his daughter Julia in Salisbury on March the 4th. This comes as UK investigators have determined the nerve agent was applied to Skripal's front door. Secretary Rouz said the review will involve at least 700 investor visas issued to Russian nationals. Golden visas have been subject of criticism from many MPs over a suspicion the investment immigration program allows corrupt individuals to buy British passports. The program gives out visas, residence permits and ultimately passports to individuals investing £2 million, that's some $2.8 million or more into the UK.
Actually a double apartment, 2 apartments combined, were purchased by the 5th most powerful bureaucrat in Russia, after Vladimir Putin. Igor Ivanovich Shuvalov, Deputy Prime Minister, who is in charge of the economy and finance, bought this place for an equivalent of 112 of his annual declared incomes.
British MPs have argued the influx of ill-gotten Russian money results from the high-profile corruption in the Russian government and state-owned enterprises. Lawmakers also say the real estate, bank accounts and other financial assets in the UK allow key Kremlin allies to widen the scope of their unchecked activities abroad. One of the consequences of such influence is the at-will targeting of the Kremlin's political opponents previously forced out of Russia.
The idea of Putin using this as a PR exercise to gloss over the brutal, corrupt regime for which he's responsible fills me with horror.
Additionally, the MPs say harbouring of corruption money enables large-scale money laundering, drug smuggling and arms trafficking operations. Such activities are sometimes shielded from the attention of law enforcement, including by diplomatic protections guaranteed to the official business of the Russian government.
There is the lobby of enablers of kleptocrats, these lawyers, property state agents, bankers that service this corrupt flow. One of such influences is, of course, that Britain would turn blind eye to corrupt money.
The Home Office observed the Kremlin's intelligence activity, as well as the questionable financial dealings and illicit operations of corrupt officials and oligarchs, have become tightly intertwined over the past decade. The British officials also warned the flow of corrupt Russian money, estimated by independent watchdogs at $2 trillion since the year 2000, has been pouring into the EU and US as well, which run their own investor visa programs.
We must stand with the thousands of Russians who peacefully protest the rampant corruption and the illegitimate elections that his government holds.
Westminster also maintains the Kremlin's destabilizing activities abroad, widely discussed in the US administration and on Capitol Hill, are not typical for those undertaken by the government of a state. Part of this operation was exposed in a major drug trafficking case centered around the Russian embassy in Argentina and involving Moscow's diplomatic mail, governmental airplanes and shipment destinations across Europe.
The
gendarmerie entered the annex of the embassy, investigated for drugs, and discovered the cocaine. The cargo flies with the full knowledge of the embassy and the Russian Federal Security Service, travels as a complement to a diplomatic suitcase, on a plane of the Russian Federal Security Service, in a commission of the Russian Federal Security Service that came to Argentina.
This comes as Home Secretary Rouz confirmed the probes into 14 suspicious deaths of Russian exiles over the past few years have been reopened and are under a thorough review. The British authorities are also focusing on the broader Russian community in the UK, repeatedly warning against Russophobia, which could only reinforce Putin's agenda of portraying other countries as enemies.
There's a danger here in smearing all Russians. Look, there are lots of very
gifted entrepreneurs, artists, rebels in London today. And it'd be awful to sort of have a total attack on all Russians up in London. It's wonderful that we have this expatriate Russian community.
In the wake of the UK's crackdown on the Kremlin's inner circle, British officials are seeking to achieve a greater transparency in investment flows and the related immigration, a process that might take years to complete.
We have committed with draft legislation due this year and next year, we'll hopefully introduce it, on forcing overseas companies and overseas individuals who own property in the United Kingdom to register that in a public register, so we'll all be able to know who owns what in London.
Secretary Rouz said her office is commencing its review of the investor visa program immediately, seeking to implement reforms aimed at curbing the harbouring of ill-gotten gains in the UK. Kristian, Rouz, One America News.
We can use your help. Call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call today.